he watched a lot of Nottingham Forest last season. And so he will know that Forest under Lamouchi could be quite stubborn, were incredibly hard to beat, particularly on the road last season. They were very organised. The amount of 1-0 wins that they snatched, particularly against top teams. So he will know that he has those players at his disposal. But how different is he to Lamouchi? I got the feeling that Lamouchi was a bit more of a taskmaster in terms of getting the best out of the players. I imagined as well he was a little more hands-off as well. But am I heading towards some element of truth there?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the hands-off piece. I mean, my best comparison for Sabri Lamouchi would probably be Carlo Ancelotti in terms of a style. I think he's a people person, but in a different sort of way. He's more of a motivator. Impassioned team talks and things like that, and basically just trying to make players as individuals feel 10 feet tall about themselves and making sure that they're catered for. That, during the week, they've got no concerns. I think he's a manager that, I see a lot of comparisons with Ancelotti. So I'm kind of taking a leap here in books that I've read on Ancelotti and his managerial style. Because I do believe they share the same personality type and basically go about the job in very similar ways as well. And I think with Lamouchi, it was very much about checking in with players every day on an individual basis, but not necessarily fostering this big group identity. So it's a case of, it's a big squad brought in by different managers, but under Lamouchi, every player was made to feel special in some way. As Lamouchi kind of gave them the individual attention that made them feel like, yeah, I'm in the good books with the manager. The manager fancies me. He likes me as a player. And that was kind of his way of working, I think. And then he was a motivator, in terms of getting players fired up to perform on the day. And during the week, it was, I would assume, a very relaxed atmosphere on the training ground, but on the understanding that you deliver on a match day. So, players were potentially pampered and treated like superstars at some, in some cases. That seems to be the Ancelotti way, that players' whims are taken care of. You need them to perform on a Saturday, and you can't have them worrying about anything. You can't have them, concerned about things. And I think it worked for so long for Lamouchi, but then when it got to the end of the season and the pressure came for those big games at the end of the season, I think that's when you need to come together as a tribe, as a team. And I think that's what let Forest down, is when you turn round and looked at your teammate who had to have your back in those high-pressure scenarios. I'm not convinced all them Forest players looked round and thought, he's got my back. And I think that's where it began to collapse for Lamouchi. And also, I would say as well, he was very, very conscious of the mind-body aspect of players, how fit they were, how good they were feeling in themselves. This was him checking in every day with players. And what happened was they came back from lockdown, and immediately in his very early press conferences, Lamouchi seemed spooked. I think he knew his players weren't fit or weren't, you talk about fit in terms of match fitness and that edge that players have. I don't think Forest players had that from the beginning. They were running on empty going into lockdown. They came out along lockdown, and it should have been an opportunity for them to feel refreshed and ready to go at it again. And Lamouchi was giving off all the signals of a manager that's like, my players aren't ready. And it kind of almost fed into, because he was saying this game after game, the early results weren't that bad after lockdown, but Lamouchi's, the vibes he was giving off was, my players aren't ready. We shouldn't be playing football in these conditions. We should have more time to get ready. And because he was very in tune with his players from checking in every day. How are you feeling, and how are you mentally? Are you ready? And I think he was getting the wrong signals. And it all kind of snowballed. He was making them feel even less confident in the way he was presenting himself to the media, because he was just oozing jitters. He was just he didn't feel ready for it. And one thing led to another, and all of a sudden he's lost the dressing room, not in the sense that the players don't like Lamouchi anymore, but he's lost the dressing room in the sense that the control he had initially, I think, left him in the end. I just think it became a team again where the players were looking out for themselves and not each other.